Good evening, kings and ladies. My arms are really tired from Venice. Mel Brooks doesn't have anything to show and has no reason to hold back. The famous director, who is known for making chaos into funny material, just dropped a list that no one saw coming. The 6 stars he didn't like working with. He does mean hated, in the most Mel Brooks-like way. Part comedy, part truth, and all wrapped up in decades of chaos in show business. The stars on this list made Mel laugh too much, and some were so perfect that they almost broke him. It's an incredibly honest love letter to the hardest and most memorable people who worked with him. You might change how you see some of Hollywood's biggest stars after seeing this. It's funny and fiery. The first part, Dom DeLuise. A lot of smart people worked with Mel Brooks. Things got tricky when it came to Dom DeLuise. It wasn't because Dom was rude or lazy. Mel had a lot less to worry about. Dom had a good laugh. It sounds like a small issue, but it turned into a big problem on set. Dom would laugh out loud every time someone made a funny face or told a joke. He just couldn't hold it in. He'd laugh out loud even in the middle of important scenes. Mel said that sometimes directing Dom felt like watching kids before the scene even began. It was necessary to repeat each line 5 or 10 times. In response to Mel's yell, Dom would start to laugh. They worked on several movies together. Dom was in Spaceballs, Robin Hood, Men in Tights, and Silent Movie History of the World Part 1. Things went the same way in all of them. Dom would laugh, which would mess up the take. Mel said it made him crazy. Mel once said that he'd get out of his chair, cover his face, and gasp for air like he had just heard the funniest joke in the world. It's funny that he wasn't even laughing at his own jokes. It was how he responded to everyone else. It was over when he was paired with Madeline Kahn or Harvey Korman. Dom would lose it with just one look. Dom only had one line in one scene in History of the World. But Madeline raised an eyebrow which made Dom lose it. He laughed for half an hour. The team had to wait until he felt better. Mel began to change how he filmed scenes with Dom. They tried to stay away from him as much as possible. He made sure Dom didn't look at any other players, anything that would make him not laugh. It did not work at all. Mel said she couldn't fire him because once we got a clean take, it was just too funny. That's what Dom did. He was annoying, but he was also very smart. His time was just right. His energy made every scene better, and when he stopped laughing to say his lines, he did a great job. Even though things were crazy, Mel and Dom were still friends. Not in the picture, they were close. Dom liked to cook and would bring pasta to the set a lot. He fed the team and made jokes with them like they were his family. But Mel kept jokingly complaining all the time. He loved to talk about how hard Dom was to deal with. He said, "I told Dom to cut more times than any other actor, and he was half the time the reason. It was love that made Mel work with Dom, even though he says he hated it." Dom was a pain on set, but a joy to be around. Everywhere he went, he made people laugh. There might be too much of it. Mel knew that he wouldn't find anyone else with that spirit. They were so different from each other, but it worked. Everything moved more slowly when Dom laughed. The team had to wait for him. He made the movies better, but he also made Mel's patience test. Mel was aware of it. It was known by everyone. Mel said that he messed up scenes, but he made the movies. It doesn't bother Mel Brooks that he is 98 years old now. He tells the truth about his work history. When asked who he didn't like working with, Dom was the first person who came to mind. Mel couldn't say it without a smile, though. It was never real hate. That kind of hate you get from your best friend when they're making you crazy. It has lots of love in it. Dom DeLuise messed up every set. He messed up takes. People laughed while they had to wait. On screen, off screen, all the time. That made Mel angry and pleased. That's why Dom is on the list. Mel Brooks always told Madeline Kahn that she was one of the smartest people he had ever worked with. She was smart, funny, and knew just the right time to say something, but she also messed up his mind. Some of his best movies were made with them. She played lead roles in the movies History of the World Part 1, Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles, and High Anxiety. In every movie, she gave acts that people will never forget. Things were not always easy behind the scenes, though. People knew Madeline for being very picky. She really thought about everything. She didn't just read the book and do what it said. She took things apart. She changed things. She had doubts about almost everything. She asked for a redo of any line that didn't feel right to her. She told them if an outfit didn't look right. She had high standards that everyone else had to meet. Mel said she was always late to set. Everything would be set up for them to wait. The team would be ready. She was cool, smiled, and acted like nothing was wrong when she finally walked in. This made Mel crazy, but it was hard to stay mad after the camera started rolling. She always came through. She played Lily Von Stupp, the tired singer with a dramatic flair, in Blazing Saddles. That part became well known. Even now, people still quote her lines, but Mel said it was hard to film those scenes. She kept wanting to change the way the scene went. She would change how she spoke, rewrite her lines, and sometimes even tell the other players what they should do. He often felt like all Mel did was try to keep up with her. He once told her that he had asked her to say a line the same way they had practiced it. She told him that she had discovered a better method. Mel said she was right a lot of the time, but that didn't make things easy. The same thing took place in Young Frankenstein. Madeline played Elizabeth, the main character's dramatic and spoiled fiancée. It wasn't easy, but she was perfect for the part. She asked for more takes. She asked for various camera settings. She even talked about lighting options. Mel said that each scene was twice as hard to film, but twice as good in the end. The crew also noticed it. People often said in whispers that Madeline was smart and fierce. Mel once said that telling her what to do was like wrestling a cat in the rain. She kept getting cast, though. That said a lot. Mel could have worked with a lot of different actors, but Madeline was always the one he chose. He knew she had something exciting with her. The way she spoke, looked, and timed her words gave her something that no one else could. It was weird how they were dating. They admired each other, but they fought a lot. There were days when nothing happened. Some days were full of fights. Madeline wanted power. Mel wanted to go fast. They both wished for the best. Mel once told him that she made him rewrite a whole scene because she didn't like the couch where her character had to sit. At first, he thought she was being fussy, but after some time he saw her point. The video of the new couch looked better. He agreed that those kinds of situations were annoying, but they also showed how well she could notice small things. Besides that, he said she could make anything about her unique. Her scenes had to be different. To be heard, she spoke up. That caused some tension on set, but most of the time, her decisions made the scene better in the end. There was a lot of strength in Madeline. She didn't give up. A strong woman who fought for what she wanted. That made her tough to work with, but it also made her stand out. Now that Mel is 98, she doesn't sugarcoat things. He said that Madeline was one of the 6 players that he hated working with the most, but he made it clear that his dislike was based on frustration, not dislike. He said she pushed him too hard and made his job twice as hard, but she got him results that no one else could. He remembered the chaos, the long waits, and the never-ending arguments, but he also remembered the funny parts, the great takes, and the scenes that are still funny today. It was hard to be Madeline Kahn. She was rude, late, and had a lot to say. She was on the list because she was one of the best. Mel didn't really hate her, but she was the kind of tough person who made everything better. 3. The Hackman gene. Gene Hackman and Mel Brooks have only worked together once. It was for Frankenstein the Young. What a great part, even though it was only for a short time. It was hard for Gene to act because he was from a very different world. Mel said that they were not the same person. There was a funny scene in the movie where Hackman played a blind hermit. Even though it was short, it became one of the most popular parts. It had funny moments and strange acts of kindness. People laughed about the scene for years, but Mel said it wasn't nearly as fun to film. It was known that Hackman played important parts. He had won an Oscar before this one. It was very emotional the way he wrote. He got ready for a lot. He paid close attention to what was being said and expected everyone else to do the same. That was different from how Mel usually does things. Mel liked to get things done quickly. He liked scenes with a lot of space and laughs that came out of nowhere. He told the players to try new things right away. He liked energy more than beauty. Hackman didn't like that, though. He wanted an easy way to do it. He didn't want the scene to change between the practice run and the real performance. Mel said Hackman had a very hard tone on set. He wasn't rude. He did his job, but he didn't like all the chaos. Hackman didn't move while Mel and the rest of the crew laughed and played around between takes. He didn't make many jokes. His part was very important to him, no matter how silly it was. There were a few small arguments while they were shooting. Hackman would sometimes ask for more practice times. Mel thought that made things take longer. Hackman also cared a lot about each shot. Mel thought it was funnier when things were a little messy, but they both wanted the scene to work, but in different ways. Mel said that he liked Hackman's work. He said he was smart and clever, but working with him was like trying to play jazz with someone who was reading from a book. Their beats were very different. Even though it was tense, the scene turned out great. Hackman gave a very funny show. Everything worked. The timing, the physical comedy, and the characters' quiet kindness. People really liked it. Mel said that the process was hard, but the end result was gold. They never worked together again, though, after Young Frankenstein. Mel said that Hackman shouldn't be brought back into his crazy world. The role was fun for Hackman, but Mel's sets were too loose for him. He liked having power. They both knew that Mel liked having freedom. Mel thought back to how Hackman joined the movie as a favor. Gene Wilder was the first person he asked about a part for him in a comedy show. Mel was glad to have him join. He said he was shocked when Hackman first asked. Hackman said yes to being in a silly black and white comedy, which surprised him, but that gravity showed up on set. Mel said that Hackman stayed in character while the rest of the group joked around. He disliked squandering time. He didn't like having to do retakes because other players were laughing. Hackman looked at Mel funny when he told him that someone messed up a take every time. It wasn't anger. It looked like, why are we doing this if no one can stay professional? The way they thought was different. Hackman used to be in plays. Mel used to be a comedian. They both worked, but not always together. He said that the event taught him something. There isn't a single type of great actress. Some are great at comedy. Some people need accuracy. And some, like Hackman, are so intense that they change the whole room. People still love that scene from Young Frankenstein. It shows that their different styles could work together, even if it was just once. Also, it shows that sometimes great comedy comes from great stress. Number 4, Cloris Leachman. Cloris Leachman was someone Mel Brooks looked up to. He often said that she was one of the best performers he had ever worked with. But behind the scenes, she gave him more trouble than almost anyone else. On screen, she was smart, skilled, and brave. Young Frankenstein, High Anxiety, and History of the World were all movies they worked on together. The first part, she always brought something strong to the part, but she also brought a lot of arguments. Ferns had a sharp mind. She didn't just do what she was told. She did more than just smile and nod when Mel gave her notes. She asked the reason, she asked him a question, she gave us some other options, she did things her own way sometimes, even when he told her not to. That made Mel crazy. He once said that being in charge of Cloris was like riding a horse that had been peeled. Her body was active, she paid attention, but she didn't like being told what to do. It wouldn't matter what other people thought, she would remain true to her own path. She played Frau Blur, the creepy maid with a secret in Young Frankenstein. The part became well known. Everything about her was perfect, her voice, her look, and the way she said her words. But Mel said it wasn't easy to get there. Cloris had her own ideas about how the figure should be. She wanted Frau Blücher to be more serious and dark. Mel thought she should be funny, strange, and warm in a strange way. That caused a fight between them. Cloris thought that Mel was missing something more in the part. Cloris was thinking too much about it, Mel thought. They never yelled or were mean, but they always argued. Mel would say one thing, Cloris was going to fight back. After that, they'd do another take her way. Her version worked better some of the time. Sometimes Mel had to beg her to give his way a chance just once. He said she tired him out, not with yelling or drama, but with questions that never end. She wanted to know about every word, move, and response. Before she could perform, she had to fully understand her role. Mel understood why, but he also said it made things take longer. He once said that Cloris made every scene seem like an argument in college. She wanted to find out what was going on in the mind behind a single look. That made her act better, but it made Mel's job harder. It was the same thing when they had high worry. She played Nurse Diesel, a creepy and bossy person in a crazy hospital. Once more, she gave a show that people will remember. She argued with Mel again about tone and direction. She thought there should be more order and less chaos in the job. Mel didn't want that. He liked fast and strange things. Cloris wanted them to pay attention and be tight. They were both right, but they kept arguing. Mel once said that Cloris's face showed that she didn't believe what he was saying. She would keep staring at him until he gave up. He did that sometimes. He stood his ground at other times. He said that the scenes were great either way. Even though she was stressed, Mel kept casting her. That said a lot. He was sure she could give birth. He knew it would be worth it in the end, but he never forgot how hard it was to get there. At first, they were friendly but not close. They liked each other, but they didn't spend much time together. Mel told him that she was in her own world, which was full of thoughts, questions, and sadness. He thought that was brave of her, but he also told her that he needed a nap after shooting all day with her. He once made fun of Cloris by saying that she was so dedicated that she would have played her part without speaking if she thought it would have helped the scene. She didn't care about being in the spotlight or getting praise. The only thing she cared about was the truth about the person. She said that level of attention made her great but also tired. She didn't let anything go. It wasn't easy for her. In every take, she gave it her all. What he did was called into question. She asked him about his style. He had to think more because of her. All of that made her tired, but it also made her memorable. Mel didn't dislike her. He didn't like how often she was right. She made him wait, but she never let him down. Richard before. Mel Brooks had one actor in mind for the lead part in Blazing Saddles from the start of the project. Richard was great for Mel. He was honest, smart, and brave. He was brave and funny, and he wouldn't be afraid to go where other people wouldn't. But things did not go the way they were supposed to. The story for Blazing Saddles was written with Richard Pryor. He left his mark on the film's crazy humor and strong lines. He gave the story an edge that made it feel real and brave. He knew that racism was silly and that humor could be used to break it down. His thoughts changed the movie in new ways. Mel said Blazing Saddles would not have been the same without Richard. It was Mel's dream for Richard to play Bart, the black sheriff who comes into a racist town and breaks everything. He was meant to play the part, but the studio turned it down. They were scared. Richard was known for something. People knew that he was hard to guess. He had problems with drugs that were hurtful. He wasn't at meetings. He sometimes didn't show up at all or was late. The film company didn't trust him to carry the movie. They told Mel to find someone else. Mel fought hard to make sure Richard stayed in the movie. He claimed that Richard was the heart and soul of the project. He said the story made sense because of Richard's sense of humor and point of view. There was no way the studio would move. They said it was too dangerous. Mel said it made him sad. Richard knew what he had to do, but it still hurt. He spent time and thought on a movie he thought was good. He had to step aside and let someone else play the part that was meant for him. Cleon Little was chosen by Mel, and he did a great job. Cleon was smooth, on time, and in charge in the part. He made the part his own. However, Mel always thought about what Blazing Saddles would have been like if Richard had played Bart. He said that Richard was crazy in a way that couldn't be copied. Something deep in his eyes made every moment feel both scary and exciting. Mel thought Richard would have brought something even stronger to the screen. Mel knew the studio was right, though. It was hard to work with Richard. When they were writing, he sometimes got there late. He didn't always show up. Mel said that you could never be sure of his mood. He had a lot of jokes and great ideas one day. The next day, he was either quiet, busy, or not there at all. It was like waiting for lightning when Mel worked with Richard, she said. It was out of your hands, it wasn't in your plans. After it hit, though, it was impossible to forget. The process of writing was a mess. Richard was one of the writers who helped Mel work on the Blazing Saddles story. It was crazy in there. There were lots of ideas flying around. People yelled, fought, and laughed so hard they hurt. Richard brought life and honesty to the role, which set the tone for the movie. He helped write scenes that were scary and bold. Mel said Richard made the movie interesting. Even though things were crazy, Mel never doubted Richard's skills. He said he was one of the best writers and actors he had ever met. However, he also said that Richard lived in his own world, which was both smart and painful. At that time, Richard was fighting his inner fears. It was a mess in his personal life. His job was going quickly, but not always in a straight line. Mel wanted to help, but he also needed someone he could count on while the movie was being made. He finally couldn't take that chance. Mel felt terrible about losing Richard as the star. He said Richard's words stayed in the movie, but not his face. Richard was the one who came up with the jokes, the tone, and the brave stories. Mel still wished he could have shared the screen with him, though. After the movie, they stayed friends. Mel never got mad. He held Richard in too high a regard. He thought of him as an artist who didn't always fit into the rules of a movie set. But he also knew that freedom could hurt people. 6. Anne Bancroft. Mel Brooks often said that his wife Anne Bancroft, who played his wife, was the hardest actress he had ever worked with. She was more than just a great performer. She was smart, strong, and never shied away from saying what she thought. And things got very real very quickly when they worked on to be or not to be together. Anne and Mel were married for more than 40 years. There was a lot of love between them, but that didn't mean they were nice to each other when the cameras were rolling. When they worked together, they saw sides of each other that most people never saw. As co-stars, To Be or Not to Be was their big project. Anne played the major female role, and Mel produced and starred in it. It was based on the famous 1942 movie of the same name and took place during World War II. The movie had comedy, drama, and political themes. Thoughts and the movie itself were both bold. Mel later said that it was harder to direct Anne than anyone else, not because she was bad at what she did. He had never seen an actress as good as she was. The trouble was that she didn't treat him like her boss, but like an equal. Anne didn't hold back on set. She told them if she didn't like a line. She spoke out if she thought a scene was wrong. She didn't care if Mel had planned it out or written it down. She spoke up about her own thoughts. Anne never let him get away with anything, Mel said. She told him right away if his plan didn't make sense. If he told her to add more emotion to a scene, she would raise an eyebrow and ask, "What kind of emotion?" She would then cross her arms and wait for him to give her a real answer, not because she was mean, but because she was smart and always one step ahead. He said she scared him sometimes. He joked that she was the only actor who made him think twice about every note he gave. They had a lot of fights while shooting. There were never any loud or mean fights between them, but they were very rough. When Mel asked Anne to say a line in a certain way, Anne would say that it wasn't true to the character. He would want more life and she would want more meaning. When the two of them got into a fight, the team quickly learned to back off. But even with all the stress, the scenes were beautiful. Anne played her part with strength and grace that made the whole movie better. The way she timed her lines, looked, and interacted with Mel made the story work. Mel said Anne was able to read between the lines and find the truth in every single one. She made it feel real, even when the conversation was silly. She wasn't trying to make people laugh. She tried to be honest. Most of the time, being honest made the funny parts even better. Things cooled down afterwards. Their fights didn't follow them home. Mel once said that they were married again as soon as they left the studio. He was going to make her tea. She would ask him about his day. But as soon as they got back to the set, it was game time. Mel liked to make fun of how hard she was to deal with. He said she was the hardest actress he had ever worked with. He also said that she was the most beautiful, smartest, and able to break his heart with just one word. He talked about how she would read a line he had written, look at him, and ask, "Really?" She would then give him a look that made him doubt everything he said. She would then write it again in her head and say it perfectly. Anne always told Mel she could do better. She pushed him in ways that no one else could. That made it hard to film, but it also made the movie better. It's possible that their work on To Be or Not to Be was tense. It also showed how much they believed in each other. Anne wasn't trying to take charge, Mel knew. The movie had to be the best it could be for her. Mel also wanted the same thing. When Mel Brooks says he didn't like working with some stars, he's just being himself. It's not really hate. It's more like the anger you feel when you have to work with people who are so good that they make you crazy. Mel's job depends on making things happen. He never wanted sets that were quiet and in charge. As long as the crazy scenes and players who brought raw, unpredictable energy were there, he was happy. The people on his hate list were the ones who made him feel the worst. They didn't agree with his decisions, messed up takes, were late, or fought over lines, but they gave him performances that will live in people's minds. Just look at DeLuise, who couldn't stop laughing, or Madeline Kahn, who questioned every page of the plot. Cloris Leachman fought over everything. Gene Hackman thought too much about everything. Richard Pryor almost got the lead role, but he brought genius to the writing room. His wife, Anne Bancroft, never let him win a fight on set. These fights weren't between enemies. It was the rough spots of working together well. Mel didn't dislike these artists. He looked up to them, he liked them. A lot of the time he loved them. He had to work harder because of them. They fought back. The push made the work better. In other words, Mel doesn't mean to say that he hated them, but the ones he'll never forget. They made a mark. They were a big part of his comedy past. Which star on this list caught you off guard the most? Write down your choice below. Please like, subscribe, and pray that you never offend Mel Brooks. He never forgets a bad day.